We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to be?
Weapons inspectors disarming Syria of its chemical weapons. Everything's been going according to plan, but now an apparent crisis. By December the 31st, the most dangerous chemical weapons will be moved to a ship, which will then take them to their final destination and destruction. But so far, not a single country has agreed to accept this shipment. The experts overseeing the disarmament are working for the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. It has a long track record of similar operations. The OPCW has managed or is in the process of overseeing the destruction of chemical weapons in countries from the United States and Russia to Albania. But what will happen to the Syrian weapons now? Will any nation be willing to destroy them on its soil? Or will the weapons have to be destroyed at sea instead? If so, what are the environmental risks? How much will it cost? And who will pay? Today on Talk to Al Jazeera from their headquarters in The Hague, we clarify all of this with the man in charge of the weapons inspectors. Ahmet Uzumcu, thank you very much indeed for talking to Al Jazeera. If I could start by asking you about the latest plans to dispose of Syria's most toxic chemicals. We're hearing talk that they might be destroyed out at sea. That seems to be something like a last resort option because quite simply no country is prepared to have these weapons destroyed on its soil.
Actually, we are talking about two categories of toxic substances. One category is the key components of those chemical weapons, and all of them are contained, in fact, big containers. And originally also we thought that the best option would be to, in fact, to remove those substances outside of Syria and transport it by ship somewhere and be destroyed there. So as to the first category of substances, it will have to be done in a special facility, either in a country, on territory, or it can be done also on a ship where this facility, special facility, could be installed. There is some precedent, in fact, in the past that such destruction activities took place on a barge, for instance. So it's not going to be for the first time.
But not at this scale?
Not at the scale, but still at an important scale. And the second category are with regard to less toxic substances, and which are comparable, in fact, to those chemicals which would be available for commercial industrial purposes and can be destroyed in commercial disposal facilities. And for the second category, we already made an appeal yesterday, and we asked to commercial companies which might be interested, in fact, in taking over the destruction of those. Of course, you know, they have to be. It has to be done within a certain time frame, and we asked how much would it cost. So for that purpose, we established a special trust fund, and we are expecting state parties to contribute to this trust fund. As to the first category, coming back to the first category, there are about 600 tons of those substances, and when the neutralization will take place, the amount of the reaction mass which will result in and could go up to 10 times more. And this substance will have also to be incinerated or destroyed in a commercial plant again. One thing I want to emphasize, taking this opportunity, is that everything will be done according to the international regulations and in a very safe manner, and all measures, in fact, will be taken appropriately, either during the transportation of those substances by ship and also during their destruction. And the OPCW will have to verify the destruction activities, especially of the category 1, but also those destruction which will be done by the commercial companies. So our inspectors will be verifying those activities.
But how frustrating is it that not one country in the world so far has said, yes, you can bring the most toxic of Syria's chemical weapons to our land and we will allow you to destroy them on our soil? The whole world wants to see the end of Syria's chemical weapons, but no one country seems prepared to help. Why is that? Is it because they don't have the expertise, or is it because it's such a hot political issue?
It's also a matter of perception, because many countries don't have any experience in destroying this kind of chemicals, and they may fear about possible adverse effects on the environment or on the people, whereas as I said earlier, all necessary measures will be taken, and we don't see any in fact possibility of such effects on both the people nor the environment. Therefore, so this is a very new issue to many countries, many peoples, also many governments. That must be the one of the reasons. But I think the possibility of a country hosting these activities is not yet excluded. There are some contacts which are underway, and we'll see the result of those contacts very soon. And we may have a host country to take this responsibility, and it would be a major, in fact, contribution by a state party to the convention, by a member of the organization, to contribute to the elimination of chemical weapons, Syrian chemical weapons. This is, after all, the ultimate goal, to get rid of those weapons worldwide, and that's why this Syrian campaign is extremely important.
It was Russia's, obviously, idea to get rid of the chemical weapons, to stop any military action taking place in Syria. Some might be saying, well, why can't Russia host this? Russia's still trying to get rid of its own chemical weapons, so it presumably has the facilities to do that. Why haven't the Russians stepped up?
I think I shouldn't reply that question. Probably it should be addressed to the Russian colleagues and to the Russian government. In the Russian Federation, as you said, there are activities of destruction of their own stockpile, which have been going for years now. They have made significant progress. 77% of the stockpiles of Russian chemicals have already been destroyed, chemical weapons. And there are 4 facilities which are operating in the Russian territory at the moment. And they are making a very, very good job. I regularly visit those facilities, and these are very high-tech facilities. And the amount of Syrian chemical weapons, in fact, is quite considerable. And if they were used, they would, in fact, have devastating effects on the one hand. But when it comes to the destruction, I don't think we should exaggerate it. So with a special facility, especially for 600 tons, everything can be done in 2 to 3 months. So in 3 months, we will be able to get rid of this. And as to the rest, in fact, we have a deadline by the end of June. And from our point of view, is if we can find available companies which could do this job, we can reach also these timelines.
What sort of chemicals are we talking about here? The ones that are most commonly talked about are sarin, mustard gas, VX. Are we talking about all of these chemicals?
The only chemical weapons which is which could be ready to be used is the mustard gas. The rest are, there are precursors or key components of sarin and VX. So in order to weaponize them, first they have to be mixed with other substances and also filled in the munitions. One advantage of the Syrian chemical stockpile is that they are not weaponized. So those substances can be destroyed, as I said, in special facilities or commercial plants, but also the unfilled munitions, which are considered as category 3 chemical weapons, and this concerns the aerial bombs as well as missile warheads, are now being destroyed by the Syrians and under the verification of our inspectors in Syria. So they don't need to be transported elsewhere. This is being done on the Syrian territory.
Is there any chance that some of the more toxic elements could actually be destroyed on Syrian soil? There is a precedent for it. It happened in Iraq, of course. They were destroyed on site or sealed on site. Have you ruled that out completely?
There is only one substance which is apparently risky to be transported, which is called isopropanol, and which is again one of the precursors. which will be destroyed on the Syrian territory. This doesn't require a special facility. It can be mixed with water and turned into an unusable substance. But as to the rest, they have to be transported somewhere else. Given the situation on the ground, given the security situation, it's practically impossible to envisage destruction activity on Syria.
How difficult is it going to be to transport those chemicals out of Syria in the first place? As I understand it, the Syrian military is going to be responsible for their safe passage. How much concern is there, though, that such a convoy could come under attack? Syria is in the midst of a civil war.
In general, we were told by the United Nations relevant departments, Department of Security and Safety, that this joint mission, which is ongoing in Syria, is in fact in the most challenging one in terms of security in the history of the United Nations. So just to show how risky is the operation itself. But the first phase was completed, as you know, quite successfully without any incident. And we hope that this phase of transportation, consolidation and transportation to the port of Latakia will go as smoothly as possible, and the opposition also will be cooperative. From our point of view, it should be in the interest of everyone, including the opposition, to get rid of those weapons as soon as possible.
Would you have a message either for the opposition fighters, or indeed any countries who have influence over those fighters, about the need to stay away from that convoy?
Actually, we have been giving these messages on several occasions, and we asked them, in fact, to be cooperative during the conduct of this mission. We know that the establishment of this mission, as well as the decisions made with regard to the elimination of chemical weapons, have been received with some mixed feelings by the opposition and some countries. But on the other hand, we hope that this agreement, in fact, reached among major players and the international community in general, may pave the way, in fact, may be a catalyst for an overall political process to address the Syrian problem in general. Therefore, I don't think that it's what we have been doing and what the joint mission has been doing over the past 2 months, and what the general goal is to get rid of those weapons, is against the interest of anyone, including the opposition.
But the opposition, as we know, is so fractured, and there are rebel elements out there who might not understand the seriousness of it, or might in fact understand the seriousness of it and use it as an opportunity. You admit it is risky.
Oh, there are risks, but our job, in fact, is, including the United Nations, is to minimize the risks. And the United Nations has some contacts with the opposition. We know that they are fractured, there are several factions and so on, but these contacts may help, in fact, to realize this mission and this activity in a timely and hopefully in a smooth manner.
As far as I gather, your aim is to get some of them out during December. They go to the port of Latakia, then what happens?
Actually, the aim is to transport those substances by 31st of December outside of Syria, as to the first category of substances, and for the second one is the deadline or timelines that we put for ourselves is 5th of February. So this decision has been made last week, and we have a clear timelines. And the aim is to transport, actually to load everything on a ship. It can be done with one ship, in fact, for the first category, and to transport them somewhere. The destination is yet unknown. So
they could actually end up being on a ship for some time until you can find...
I hope not. No, I hope that by 31st of December, so we have more than a month, I think the destination will be determined.
And who is providing that ship?
There are some countries like Denmark, Norway and Italy, in fact, who had offered some in-kind contribution, if you wish, to transport these materials to some countries where they will be destroyed.
And if you end up having to destroy the most toxic of these chemicals out at sea. How would that work? Who would provide the facility to do that?
There are already some facilities which are manufactured by the United States and which can be transported easily and installed easily, either on a ship or on land. So I think the Americans will provide these facilities.
So it looks like that would be an American-led side of...
For the Category 1, we expect that they will take the lead.
What would be your preferred method, though, your preferred option? If you had the choice, you would prefer this to be done on land?
Actually, from a technical point of view, our experts suggest that this doesn't make any difference. Both environmentally or security-wise, this is similar. And after all, we are talking about a neutralization process, and they will be mixed with some other substances, and they will go through a process, and the resulting reaction mass will have to be transported somewhere. So it doesn't make basically it's more or less the same process, and it doesn't make much difference. For us, for the OPCW, what's important that we should be able to verify this process as we have done in the past in other instances. So we will have a permanent presence of our inspectors during all these destruction activities.
Who pays for all this? President Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, had estimated a couple of months ago that it would cost $1 billion. Do you think it will cost that much? How much do you think it's going to cost?
According to the Convention, Chemical Weapons Convention, the possessor states parties will have to fund the destruction activities. That's what happened in the case of the United States, the Russian Federation, and others. But the Syrian government has announced since the outset that they wouldn't have the necessary resources to fund those activities. Therefore, we had established this trust fund just 3 days ago. And I have been making some appeals to state parties to contribute to this trust fund. The amount that we are talking about is $35 to $40 million, not $1 billion, and much less, but still costly. They have always been costly activities. So we will fund those activities through this trust fund.
And you expect a large number of countries to contribute? I mean, how as you say, you've asked for these contributions. You're expecting to get the right amount coming in? Do you expect, for example, yes, US and Russia to put up the majority of the money, or?
I don't know which countries, but the state parties have in general been very generous. We had a separate trust fund for the first phase of our activities, and many countries came forward, and they contribute over $10 million so far. We spent some of those money, that money. But this time, of course, the amounts will have to be larger. And I think the European Union also may contribute to this fund. So we are making necessary demarches.
You yourself have praised Syria for the cooperation it's shown over this issue. How surprised were you at just how helpful they were, and why do you think they were willing to give such cooperation? Was it the threat of force or the influence of other countries?
I wouldn't comment on their motives, but I was asked several times whether the Syrian authorities have been cooperative in the implementation of the Executive Council decisions as well as Security Council resolution. I think that they have been constructive, they have been transparent, and they have been cooperative. In the declaration they have made initially, as well as during the initial inspections, in fact, they were quite open. And the initial declaration also has proven to be quite accurate and very close to our estimates. So we are satisfied with the existing cooperation. Of course, we hope that they will maintain it. They have become a state party, a member country, as of 14th of October.
Because they were one of 8 that weren't, isn't that right?
Yes, indeed. Actually, now the number has decreased to 6. So after Somalia, then Syria, there are only 6 countries which are outside the convention. And as every member country has, Syria has also some obligations they have to fulfill. And since their membership has been done in a very unusual, extraordinary circumstances, and that's why there are special timelines, and the obligations will have to be implemented in a different time scale. And we expect them to, fulfill those obligations.
It's quite extraordinary, actually, isn't it? Because it's only a couple of months since it looked like the US were on the verge of taking some sort of action in Syria. And then suddenly the Russians come up with this plan. Were you a party to that plan at all? Did you know anything behind the scenes of what was going on, and were you able to advise about that, or did it come as a complete surprise?
It wasn't a complete surprise, I would say. We knew that Russians and Americans were talking to each other on Syrian chemical weapons stockpile, and on our part, as a technical secretariat of the organization, in fact, we have been preparing ourselves for different scenarios. If our expertise and experience on chemical weapons was called upon by the international community, how we would be able to help this process. And we have trained our inspectors both for possible investigation of alleged use, which happened, and also for other contingencies. So when we heard that the talks would take place in Geneva on 12th of September, in fact, we were ready to contribute to this process. But the whole negotiations took place within 2 days in Geneva between the Russian and American officials and experts. And when we were given the result, the framework document, in fact, we immediately started our preparations. Then on 27th, as you know, the decision was taken both here and in New York, and we were ready to deploy our team in 48 hours.
And of course, the world wants to know that the weapons have been destroyed, they've been safely removed. But how can you guarantee that Syria has given up all its chemical weapons and its equipment for making those weapons? Is there a guarantee? Can you go back in and check?
If you look at the decision by the Executive Council as well as the Security Council resolution, there is a mechanism, in fact, which can be implemented at any time, which would allow our inspectors, to go and check if Syria had declared everything. So any state party could ask the technical secretary of the OPCW, in fact, to go to a certain place, and if they have some suspicions, and to verify whether there are some more chemical weapons which were not declared, or whether there are some activities. So this is always feasible, and if we are asked, we will of course carry on such missions.
But it is conceivable that they may have been able to hide some from the world.
I wouldn't speculate on this. So if we receive such a request from our member countries, clearly we will have to look at it, and whether it's substantiated or not, we will raise the questions, and if necessary, we will act swiftly.
A final thought: obviously the ultimate aim of your organisation is the eradication of chemical weapons within the world. I know there are deadlines in the next couple of decades that you hope that will be achieved. What then happens to your organisation? What are your functions? What's your next goal?
I should thank you for this question, because that's a very important question. The main goal of this convention, in fact, is to prevent the use of chemical weapons. And how to prevent the use of chemical weapons? Of course, the primary step that should be taken is the elimination of existing stockpiles. Once they will be eliminated, or at the same time, we have to prevent their re-emergence, their development, their production, their storage, and their use. But then we have to see whether this organization will continue to be relevant, will continue to serve the security interests of the state parties. And the conclusion, in a nutshell, is that this organization, from their point of view, also it could do more work in terms of non-proliferation, preventing the reemergence of chemical weapons, but also promoting the peaceful use. So we are going to actually, we are at the moment exploring different projects and within the parameters of the convention, and how best we could achieve the overall objectives of the Chemical Weapons Convention in the years to come.
Ahmet Uzumcu, thank you very much indeed for talking
Thank you.
to Al Jazeera. Thank you.